Are you filled with fear, doubt, worry about the future of our country? Do you feel the urgency to act before it's too late? If yes, then this podcast is for you. It's time for us to confront the critical issues threatening our nation's fabric, our democracy itself, regardless of our political stance. If you are ready to face reality, handle the tough questions, and find real solutions, then here's your host, Debilyn Molineaux.
Welcome back to Terrified Nation, the podcast where we explore the big questions about who we are, where we're going, and what it means to live in this moment of chaos and transformation. I'm your host, Debilyn Molineaux, and today we're diving into a story about fairy tales, hard truths, and what happens when we stop waiting to be saved. Segment 1. The fairy tale we believe. Maybe it's just me, but when I was little, I wanted to be a princess, a real one with a sparkling crown and a beautiful castle, and most importantly, a prince who would come and save me. Because that's how stories always went, right? The princess faces danger, struggles, maybe even falls asleep for 100 years, and then, just in time, a handsome prince arrives. He fights the dragons, sweeps her off her feet, and they live happily ever after. So I waited for my prince. In high school, I thought I found him. My first love gave me gifts. He took me on trips. He treated me like royalty. But something just wasn't right. And I was young, I was restless, and I was never quite satisfied. So when I broke it off, he moved across the country. For the record, he got married, he has grandkids, he's doing quite well. But for me, there was more drama ahead. So I married young, thinking I'd found my forever partner. But instead of building a life with me, he loved drawing pictures and smoking weed a lot more than working and protecting our future. Of course, that ended in divorce. Then another man came along, a coworker who was kind and attentive. It seemed really promising. But a few weeks later, he showed up drunk at work, lost his job, and before I knew it, he and his 3 kids were living with me. I was 20, but I felt like 40. I wanted to adopt his daughter to give her a better future because I knew these kids didn't stand a chance. But I also knew I couldn't save them all. And that's when it hit me. Prince Charming isn't real, and he wasn't coming. Segment 2, choosing to save myself. I had spent my life thinking someone else would fix things for me, and then my life would be perfect. But what if I was the one who needed to step up? I decided to save myself. So when I married again at 23, it wasn't about fairy tales. It was about partnership. 2 people choosing to walk through life together. This marriage lasted over 20 years, but eventually our paths went in different directions. Mine led me towards civic work, helping people become the engaged citizens that our country desperately needs. And then one day, I found myself in the self-help section of a Barnes & Noble, looking for a book that would make me feel safe and wise and whole. And then it hit me. I didn't need another book. I didn't need saving. I was already free, already safe, already whole. But of course, that realization didn't last forever because change never happens in a straight line. Growth is messy. You have an epiphany, but then old habits pull you back. You bounce between the past and the future until one day, this new way of thinking finally sticks, and you wake up a new person. Now, this doesn't just happen to individuals. It happens to entire societies. This leads to segment 3. What are we becoming? So think about a small town, a place where everything runs the way it always has. The streets are quiet, People follow the same routines. It's comfortable, it's familiar. And then one day, a stranger arrives and they ask questions like, why do you do things this way? Now the town has a choice. Do they listen and evolve, or do they push the stranger out? Either way, things will never quite be the same because change has arrived. And that brings me back to wanting to be saved. Right now in the United States, many people wish we could go back to the way things used to be. Others believe that a strong leader, this knight in shining armor, will save us. But what if this discomfort, this process of change and transformation, this chaos, this uncertainty is actually growth? And the real question isn't who will save us, it's what are we becoming? Well, that's it for today's episode of Terrified Nation. And if this story resonated with you, please share it with a friend. And if you're feeling the discomfort of change, you are not alone. And if you want to be part of shaping what comes next, stick with us. Follow the podcast, leave a review, and let's keep the conversation going. Stay curious, stay together, and let's face this terrified nation together. Join me next time.
So that's it for today's episode of Terrified Nation. Head on over to iTunes or wherever you listen to subscribe to the show. You can get advance notice of new episodes and bonus content by signing up. Head over to terrifiednation.com and join us on the next episode.